CLEP History Cold War. Question 1. Which answer best matches this CLEP History Cold War clue? Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763? Option A. Salutary neglect. Option B. Berlin Conference. Option C. Jamestown. Option D. Point of view. The correct answer is option A. Salutary neglect. This points to salutary neglect because loose enforcement helped colonists develop habits of self-government. Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions, and point of view points instead to a source reflects the author's position, interests, and audience. Question 2. How would a CLEP history question most likely test this clue? Journalists exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Option A. Reign of Terror. Option B. Vietnam War. Option C. Muckrakers. Option D. United Nations. The correct answer is option C. Muckrakers. This points to muckrakers because their reporting helped build support for progressive reforms. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Vietnam War points instead to U.S. escalation caused major protest and debate over containment, and United Nations points instead to an international organization was created after World War II to promote peace and cooperation. Question 3. Why does this clue matter for CLEP History Cold War? Old-regime inequality and fiscal crisis helped spark radical political change? Option A. Monorealism. Option B. Crusades. Option C. French Revolution. Option D. Articles of Confederation. The correct answer is option C. French Revolution. This points to French Revolution because the revolution transformed France and Europe. Monorealism points instead to peasants' worked estates that formed the economic base of medieval society. Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the eastern Mediterranean, and Articles of Confederation points instead to the first national government had a weak central authority and no power to tax directly. Question 4. When reviewing CLEP History Cold War, which answer fits this clue? U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion? Option A. Italian unification. Option B. Mexican-American War. Option C. Printing press. Option D. Pearl Harbor. The correct answer is option B. Mexican-American War. This points to Mexican-American War because the war ended with major territorial gains under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Italian unification points instead to Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Printing press points instead to movable type spread books and ideas more quickly, and Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Question 5. Where does this clue point in CLEP history content? A trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism. Option A. Scopes trial. Option B. Plato. Option C. Ancient Egypt. Option D. Steam engine. The correct answer is option A. Scopes trial. This points to Scopes trial because the case symbolized cultural tensions of the 1920s. Plato points instead to a philosopher wrote dialogues and imagined rule by philosopher minus kings. Ancient Egypt points instead to pharaohs, the Nile, and monumental architecture shaped a long lasting civilization, and steam engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Question 6. Identify the answer connected to this CLEP History Cold War clue. A later interpretation explains or analyzes past events. Option A. Stalin. Option B. Secondary source. Option C. Charlemagne. Option D. Aristotle. The correct answer is option B. Secondary source. This points to secondary source because secondary sources synthesize evidence after the fact. Stalin points instead to Soviet rule featured collectivization, 5-year plans, and political terror. Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning, and Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Question 7. Choose the term that completes this history clue. Byzantine legal reform organized Roman law. Option A. Justinian Code. Option B. German unification. Option C. Great Awakening. Option D. Second Great Awakening. The correct answer is option A, Justinian Code. This points to Justinian Code because the code influenced later European legal systems. German unification points instead to Bismarck used diplomacy and war to unify Germany under Prussia. Great Awakening points instead to religious revivals stressed personal conversion and challenged established authority, and Second Great Awakening points instead to revivalism-inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance. Question 8. Select the best match for this CLEP-style clue. A canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. Option A, German unification. Option B, storming of the Bastille. Option C, Montesquieu. Option D, Erie Canal. The correct answer is option D, Erie Canal. This points to Erie Canal because it helped link Western farms to Eastern markets. German unification points instead to Bismarck used diplomacy and war to unify Germany under Prussia. Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789, and Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers. Question 9. Determine which answer explains this CLEP History Cold War clue. Thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Option A, Munich Conference. Option B, Scientific Revolution. Option C, Source Bias. Option D, Holocaust. The correct answer is option B, Scientific Revolution. This points to scientific revolution because the movement transformed European science. Munich Conference points instead to European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions, and Holocaust points instead to Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Question 10. Recognize the event or idea behind this clue. Laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Option A, Peace of Westphalia. Option B, Dawes Act. Option C, 30 Years' War. Option D, Newton. The correct answer is option D, Newton. This points to Newton because his work became a foundation of modern science. Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Dawes Act points instead to tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans, and 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict. Question 11. Pinpoint the best answer for this history clue. Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Option A, Napoleon Bonaparte. Option B, Boston Tea Party. Option C, Compromise of 1850. Option D, Transcontinental Railroad. The correct answer is option C, Compromise of 1850. This points to Compromise of 1850 because the package tried to manage sectional conflict after the Mexican Cession. Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor, and Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Question 12. Spot the answer that matches this exam clue. Historians compare sources to test reliability and build evidence. Option A, Persian Empire. Option B, appeasement. Option C, World War I alliances. Option D, corroboration. The correct answer is option D, corroboration. This points to corroboration because corroboration helps avoid relying on one source alone. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Appeasement points instead to Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war, and World War I alliances points instead to entangling alliances turned a regional crisis into a wider war. Question 13. Compare the options and choose the one tied to this clue. Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery and reform. Option A, Federal Reserve Act. Option B, New Deal. Option C, Munich Conference. Option D, Martin Luther. The correct answer is option B, New Deal. This points to New Deal because the New Deal redefined the role of the federal government in the economy. Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Munich Conference points instead to European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938, and Martin Luther points instead to a monk challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Question 14. Connect this CLEP History Cold War clue to the right answer. Improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Option A, steam engine. Option B, Dred Scott decision. Option C, Watergate. Option D, Berlin Conference. The correct answer is option A, steam engine. This points to steam engine because steam power accelerated industrial growth. Dred Scott decision points instead to the Supreme Court denied black citizenship and rejected limits on slavery in territories. Watergate points instead to a political scandal led to President Nixon's resignation, and Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation. Question 15. Trace this clue to the correct historical topic. Soviet collapse ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Option A, source bias. Option B, end of the Cold War. Option C, Hebrew monotheism. Option D, conservatism. The correct answer is option B, end of the Cold War. This points to end of the Cold War because the event transformed global politics after 1991. Source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Hebrew monotheism points instead to belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion, and conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order. Question 16. Explain which answer fits this CLEP history clue. The Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Option A, Mayflower Compact. Option B, Roe v. Wade. Option C, Homestead Act. Option D, liberalism. The correct answer is option B, Roe v. Wade. This points to Roe v. Wade because the case became central to debates over privacy and reproductive rights. Mayflower Compact points instead to Pilgrims agreed to self-government before settling at Plymouth. Homestead Act points instead to settlers received Western land after meeting residency and improvement requirements, and liberalism points instead to political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government. Question 17. Interpret this clue and choose the best answer. Colonies in Asia and Africa gained independence after World War II. Option A, Jamestown. Option B, Crusades. Option C, decolonization. Option D, secession. The correct answer is option C, decolonization. This points to decolonization because the process ended many European empires. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions. Crusades points instead to European Christians launched military campaigns toward the eastern Mediterranean, and secession points instead to southern states left the Union after Lincoln's election. Question 18. Analyze this history clue and find the match. Colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor. Option A, Truman Doctrine. Option B, Saratoga. Option C, Social Security Act. Option D, Boston Tea Party. The correct answer is option D, Boston Tea Party. This points to Boston Tea Party because the protest led Britain to impose tougher measures on Massachusetts. Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States' promised aid to resist communist expansion. Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States, and Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Question 19. Recall the answer linked to this clue. Political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. Option A, agricultural revolution. Option B, fall of Western Rome. Option C, investiture controversy. Option D, GI Bill. The correct answer is option B, fall of Western Rome. This points to fall of Western Rome because the fall marks a major transition to medieval Europe. Agricultural revolution points instead to improved farming, increased food production before industrialization. Investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops, and GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Question 20. Name the event, idea, or policy described here. Spain's failed invasion of England weakened Spanish prestige. Option A, common sense. Option B, Enlightenment. Option C, 100 Years' War. Option D, Spanish Armada. The correct answer is option D, Spanish Armada. This points to Spanish Armada because the defeat boosted English confidence and naval reputation. Common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition. And Hundred Years' War points instead to a long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities. Question 21. Match this CLEP History Cold War clue with the correct answer. City-states such as Athens and Sparta shaped Greek political life? Option A. Manifest Destiny. Option B. Greek Polis. Option C. 12 Tables. Option D. Nullification Crisis. The correct answer is option B. Greek Polis. This points to Greek polis because the polis was the central political unit of ancient Greece. Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. 12 Tables points instead to Rome's written laws protected some legal rights for citizens, and Nullification Crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Question 22. Distinguish the correct answer from similar history topics. A Cold War conflict began when North Korea invaded South Korea. Option A. Compromise of 1850. Option B. Korean War. Option C. Copernicus. Option D. Reign of Terror. The correct answer is option B. Korean War. This points to Korean War because the war showed containment becoming a military policy in Asia. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system. And Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic. Question 23. Locate the correct choice for this CLEP clue. The Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education? Option A. Sputnik. Option B. Japanese-American internment. Option C. Saratoga. Option D. Alexander the Great. The correct answer is option A. Sputnik. This points to Sputnik because the event raised U.S. fears of falling behind technologically. Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. And Alexander the Great points instead to Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the Eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Question 24. Review this clue and select the best answer. Britain and France made concessions to Hitler hoping to avoid war. Option A. Social Security Act. Option B. Montgomery bus boycott. Option C. Truman Doctrine. Option D. Appeasement. The correct answer is option D. Appeasement. This points to appeasement because the policy failed to stop Nazi expansion. Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Montgomery bus boycott points instead to African Americans protested segregated buses after Rosa Parks' arrest. And Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States promised aid to resist communist expansion. Question 25. Decide which option this CLEP history clue describes. The disputed 1876 election ended with federal troops leaving the South. Option A. Aristotle. Option B. Chinese Exclusion Act. Option C. Compromise of 1877. Option D. Hitler. The correct answer is option C. Compromise of 1877. This points to Compromise of 1877 because the compromise marked the end of Reconstruction. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher-emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Chinese Exclusion Act points instead to federal law restricted immigration from China in 1882, and Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Question 26. Evaluate the options and choose the one that fits. A Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Option A. Enlightenment. Option B. Storming of the Bastille. Option C. Revolutions of 1848. Option D. English Civil War. The correct answer is option B. Storming of the Bastille. This points to storming of the Bastille because the event became a symbol of revolutionary action. Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition. Revolutions of 1848 points instead to liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe. and English Civil War points instead to conflict between king and parliament challenged royal absolutism. Question 27. Consider in CLEP History Cold War, which answer fits this clue? A Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis? Option A, Enlightenment. Option B, Reign of Terror. Option C, Diocletian. Option D, Gettysburg. The correct answer is option C, Diocletian. This points to Diocletian because his reforms tried to stabilize the empire. Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition. Reign of Terror points instead to radical revolutionaries used executions to defend the French Republic, and Gettysburg points instead to a Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Question 28. Predict the answer. A CLEP item is targeting land holding and personal loyalty structured medieval power. Option A, Constitutional Convention. Option B, Charlemagne. Option C, Fall of the Berlin Wall. Option D, Feudalism. The correct answer is option D, Feudalism. This points to feudalism because the system organized political and military obligations. Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. And Fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Question 29. Notice the key clue and choose the matching answer. Politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Option A, Jacksonian democracy. Option B, Manifest Destiny. Option C, House of Burgesses. Option D, Bacon's Rebellion. The correct answer is option A, Jacksonian democracy. This points to Jacksonian democracy because the era broadened participation for many white men while excluding women and most black Americans. Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government, and Bacon's Rebellion points instead to frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Question 30. Estimate which topic this clue would test. Colonies supplied raw materials and markets for the mother country. Option A, Gilded Age. Option B, Seneca Falls Convention. Option C, Martin Luther. Option D, Mercantilism. The correct answer is option D, Mercantilism. This points to mercantilism because the system treated colonies as sources of wealth for an imperial power. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth to deep inequality and political corruption. Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality, and Martin Luther points instead to a monk challenged indulgences and helped launch the Protestant Reformation. Question 31. Judge which option best completes this clue. A nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Option A, Transcontinental Railroad. Option B, Townsend Acts. Option C, Cuban Missile Crisis. Option D, Harlem Renaissance. The correct answer is option C, Cuban Missile Crisis. This points to Cuban Missile Crisis because the crisis became a major Cold War confrontation. Transcontinental Railroad points instead to rail lines connected the country and accelerated Western settlement and commerce. Townsend Acts points instead to Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper, and tea, and Harlem Renaissance points instead to African American writers, artists, and musicians flourished in the 1920s. Question 32. Assess the clue and select the correct history term. Artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression. Option A, Romanticism. Option B, Jacksonian democracy. Option C, Napoleon Bonaparte. Option D, Bill of Rights. The correct answer is option A, Romanticism. This points to Romanticism because the movement reacted against strict rationalism and industrial society. Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man. Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire, and Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Question 33. Classify this clue under the right historical answer. Macedonian conquest spread Greek culture across the eastern Mediterranean and Near East. Option A, Emancipation Proclamation. Option B, Whiskey Rebellion. Option C, Alexander the Great. Option D, Compromise of 1850. The correct answer is option C, Alexander the Great. This points to Alexander the Great because his empire helped create the Hellenistic world. Emancipation Proclamation points instead to Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax, and Compromise of 1,850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act. Question 34. Infer the answer from this short CLEP clue. European states expanded control over Africa and Asia in the late 19th century? Option A, Magna Carta. Option B, Punic Wars. Option C, New Imperialism. Option D, John Locke. The correct answer is option C, New Imperialism. This points to new imperialism because imperialism sought resources, markets, prestige, and strategic advantage. Magna Carta points instead to English nobles' forced limits on royal power in 1215. Punic Wars points instead to Rome defeated Carthage and gained dominance in the Western Mediterranean, and John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Question 35. Link this clue to the correct exam topic. Citizens participated directly in political decision-making? Option A, End of the Cold War. Option B, Conservatism. Option C, Constitutional Convention. Option D, Athenian democracy. The correct answer is option D, Athenian democracy. This points to Athenian democracy because Athens developed a form of direct democracy for male citizens. End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse. Ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry. Conservatism points instead to post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy, and social order, and Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Question 36. Uncover the answer behind this history clue. The Roman Empire experienced relative peace and prosperity. Option A, Pax Romana. Option B, Napoleon Bonaparte. Option C, Stamp Act. Option D, Northern Renaissance. The correct answer is option A, Pax Romana. This points to Pax Romana because this period helped trade and imperial culture flourish. Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Stamp Act points instead to Parliament taxed printed materials and sparked colonial protests over representation, and Northern Renaissance points instead to reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. Question 37. Test your recall by choosing the answer for this clue. Mechanized production transformed work, cities, and economies. Option A, historical context. Option B, Industrial Revolution. Option C, Renaissance humanism. Option D, medieval universities. The correct answer is option B, Industrial Revolution. This points to Industrial Revolution because industrialization shifted Europe toward factory-based production. Historical context points instead to events are understood through the conditions and ideas of their time. Renaissance humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement, and medieval universities points instead to schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate. Question 38. Practice in CLEP History Cold War, which answer fits this clue? Slavery was abolished throughout the United States. Option A, European Coal and Steel Community. Option B, 13th Amendment. Option C, Henry VIII. Option D, Cotton Gin. The correct answer is option B, 13th Amendment. This points to 13th Amendment because the amendment legally ended slavery after the Civil War. European Coal and Steel Community points instead to Western European states' pooled coal and steel production after World War II. Henry VIII points instead to the English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England, and Cotton Gin points instead to Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Question 39. Challenge yourself to identify this history clue. Events are placed in correct time order. Option A, New Deal. Option B, Weimar Republic. Option C, chronology. Option D, common sense. The correct answer is option C, chronology. This points to chronology because chronology helps students recognize cause, sequence, and periodization. New Deal points instead to Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery, and reform. Weimar Republic points instead to Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems, and Common Sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Question 40. Confirm the correct answer for this clue. A philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Option A. Great Depression. Option B. Boston Tea Party. Option C. Roe v. Wade. Option D. Aristotle. The correct answer is option D. Aristotle. This points to Aristotle because his writings influenced science, ethics, and politics for centuries. Great Depression points instead to a severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures. Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor, and Roe v. Wade points instead to the Supreme Court recognized a constitutional right to abortion in 1973. Question 41. Verify which option matches this CLEP history clue. A Roman emperor legalized Christianity and founded Constantinople. Option A. Yorktown. Option B. Constantine. Option C. Napoleon Bonaparte. Option D. Cuban Missile Crisis. The correct answer is option B. Constantine. This points to Constantine because his policies changed the status of Christianity in the empire. Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire, and Cuban Missile Crisis points instead to a nuclear standoff brought the United States and Soviet Union close to war. Question 42. Solve this quick history clue. Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Option A. Marshall Plan. Option B. Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option C. Pearl Harbor. Option D. Romanticism. The correct answer is option C. Pearl Harbor. This points to Pearl Harbor because the attack ended U.S. neutrality in the war. Marshall Plan points instead to the United States-funded European recovery after World War II. Civil Rights Act of 1964 points instead to Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination, and Romanticism points instead to artists and writers emphasized emotion, nature, and individual expression. Question 43. Figure out the correct answer from this clue. Observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Option A. McCarthyism. Option B. Japanese-American internment. Option C. Galileo. Option D. Atomic bombings. The correct answer is option C. Galileo. This points to Galileo because his work became a symbol of scientific conflict with authority. McCarthyism points instead to accusations of communist influence damaged careers during the Second Red Scare. Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II, and atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Question 44. Find the option that best fits this clue. Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Option A. Federalist Papers. Option B. Estates-General. Option C. Renaissance Humanism. Option D. Holocaust. The correct answer is option D. Holocaust. This points to Holocaust because the genocide became a central moral catastrophe of World War II. Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power. Estates-General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis, and Renaissance Humanism points instead to scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Question 45. Remember which topic connects to this clue. Congress outlawed segregation in public accommodations and employment discrimination. Option A. Civil Rights Act of 1964. Option B. Trail of Tears. Option C. Galileo. Option D. Fascism. The correct answer is option A. Civil Rights Act of 1964. This points to Civil Rights Act of 1964 because the law became a landmark federal civil rights measure. Trail of Tears points instead to Cherokee removal led to deadly forced migration westward. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views, and fascism points instead to authoritarian nationalism rejected liberal democracy and communism. Question 46. Highlight the answer described by this clue. Reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. Option A. Great Compromise. Option B. Seneca Falls Convention. Option C. Northern Renaissance. Option D. Manifest Destiny. The correct answer is option C. Northern Renaissance. This points to Northern Renaissance because it often emphasized Christian learning and social criticism. Great Compromise points instead to the Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states. Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality, and Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. Question 47. Separate the correct answer from close distractors. Britain gained territory but created debt that led to new colonial taxes. Option A. French and Indian War. Option B. 19th Amendment. Option C. Investiture controversy. Option D. 30 Years' War. The correct answer is option A. French and Indian War. This points to French and Indian War because the war reshaped North America and intensified imperial tensions. 19th Amendment points instead to women gained constitutional protection for voting rights. Investiture controversy points instead to popes and emperors fought over appointing bishops, and 30 Years' War points instead to a destructive European war mixed religious and political conflict. Question 48. Clarify which history topic this clue describes. Women gained constitutional protection for voting rights. Option A. Louisiana Purchase. Option B. Jamestown. Option C. Bolsheviks. Option D. 19th Amendment. The correct answer is option D. 19th Amendment. This points to 19th Amendment because the amendment marked a major victory for women's suffrage. Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Jamestown points instead to England's first permanent settlement survived through tobacco and difficult early conditions, and Bolsheviks points instead to radical Marxists seized power in Russia in 1917. Question 49. Relate this clue to the correct CLEP history answer. English nobles forced limits on royal power in 1215. Option A. Magna Carta. Option B. Federal Reserve Act. Option C. Fall of Western Rome. Option D. Primary source. The correct answer is option A. Magna Carta. This points to Magna Carta because the charter became associated with rule of law. Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Fall of Western Rome points instead to political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West, and primary source points instead to a document or artifact comes from the time being studied. Question 50. Detect the answer hidden in this clue. The U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Option A. Hitler. Option B. Scientific Revolution. Option C. Dawes Act. Option D. Japanese American internment. The correct answer is option D. Japanese American internment. This points to Japanese American internment because the policy reflected wartime fear and racial prejudice. Hitler points instead to Nazi leadership promoted dictatorship, expansionism, and racial ideology. Scientific revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature, and Dawes Act points instead to tribal lands were divided into individual allotments to assimilate Native Americans. Question 51. Differentiate the matching answer from other periods. Piedmont, Garibaldi, and nationalist politics helped create Italy. Option A. Federalist Papers. Option B. Italian unification. Option C. Peace of Augsburg. Option D. Atomic bombings. The correct answer is option B. Italian unification. This points to Italian unification because unification changed the European balance of power. Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power. Peace of Augsburg points instead to German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories, and atomic bombings points instead to the United States used nuclear weapons against Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Question 52. Carefully choose which option matches this clue. East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Option A, fall of the Berlin Wall. Option B, Aristotle. Option C, Marshall Plan. Option D, Lend-Lease. The correct answer is option A, fall of the Berlin Wall. This points to fall of the Berlin Wall because the event symbolized the collapse of communist control in Eastern Europe. Aristotle points instead to a philosopher emphasized observation, logic, and classification. Marshall Plan points instead to the United States funded European recovery after World War II, and Lend-Lease points instead to the United States supplied allies before entering World War II. Question 53. Question in CLEP History Cold War, which answer fits this clue? Athens and Sparta fought a long war that weakened Greek city-states. Option A, Persian Empire. Option B, Augustus. Option C, muckrakers. Option D, Peloponnesian War. The correct answer is option D, Peloponnesian War. This points to Peloponnesian War because the conflict damaged Greek political stability. Persian Empire points instead to a large empire used satraps and roads to govern diverse peoples. Augustus points instead to Rome's first emperor created the Principate and launched the Pax Romana, and muckrakers points instead to journalists, exposed corporate abuse, corruption, and urban problems. Question 54. Explore this clue and identify the correct answer. A proposal tried to ban slavery in lands gained from Mexico. Option A, Wilmot Proviso. Option B, Voting Rights Act of 1965. Option C, Charlemagne. Option D, primary source. The correct answer is option A, Wilmot Proviso. This points to Wilmot Proviso because the proposal sharpens sectional conflict over expansion. Voting Rights Act of 1965 points instead to federal law attacked barriers such as literacy tests and voting. Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning, and primary source points instead to a document or artifact comes from the time being studied. Question 55. Revisit this history clue and choose its match. The English king broke with Rome and created the Church of England. Option A, sharecropping. Option B, 13th Amendment. Option C, Council of Trent. Option D, Henry VIII. The correct answer is option D, Henry VIII. This points to Henry VIII because the break began the English Reformation. Sharecropping points instead to freed people and poor whites farmed land for a share of the crop. 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States, and Council of Trent points instead to Catholic leaders clarified doctrine and reformed church practices. Question 56. Discover which answer. This CLEP clue describes post-Napoleonic politics defended tradition, monarchy and social order. Option A, Charlemagne. Option B, Montesquieu. Option C, Berlin Conference. Option D, conservatism. The correct answer is option D, conservatism. This points to conservatism because conservatives sought stability after revolution and war. Charlemagne points instead to a Frankish ruler built a large empire and supported Christian learning. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers, and Berlin Conference points instead to European powers set rules for colonizing Africa without African representation. Question 57. Investigate the correct choice for this clue. England replaced James II and strengthened parliamentary power. Option A, Diocletian. Option B, Plato. Option C, Truman Doctrine. Option D, Glorious Revolution. The correct answer is option D, Glorious Revolution. This points to Glorious Revolution because the event limited monarchy and supported constitutional government. Diocletian points instead to a Roman emperor divided administration to manage imperial crisis. Plato points instead to a philosopher wrote dialogues and imagined rule by philosopher minus kings, and Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States promised aid to resist communist expansion. Question 58. Read the clue and select the matching topic. Critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. Option A, Peace of Westphalia. Option B, Socialism. Option C, Russian Revolution. Option D, 13th Amendment. The correct answer is option B, Socialism. This points to socialism because socialist ideas responded to industrial inequality. Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Russian Revolution points instead to revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power, and 13th Amendment points instead to slavery was abolished throughout the United States. Question 59. Complete the exam-style clue with the correct answer. A Union victory marked a major turning point in the Civil War. Option A, Progressive Era. Option B, Gettysburg. Option C, Federalist Papers. Option D, Saratoga. The correct answer is option B, Gettysburg. This points to Gettysburg because the battle halted Lee's invasion of the North. Progressive Era points instead to reformers targeted corruption, monopolies, unsafe workplaces, and social injustice. Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power, and Saratoga points instead to an American victory persuaded France to ally with the United States. Question 60. Decode this history clue and choose the right answer. Farmers demanded reforms such as free silver, railroad regulation, and direct democracy. Option A, 100 Years' War. Option B, Washington's neutrality policy. Option C, intolerable acts. Option D, populist movement. The correct answer is option D, populist movement. This points to populist movement because the movement reflected rural anger over debt, prices, and corporate power. 100 Years' War points instead to a long conflict between England and France strengthened national identities. Washington's neutrality policy points instead to the young United States avoided taking sides in European wars, and intolerable acts points instead to Britain punished Massachusetts after the Boston Tea Party. Question 61. Rapidly identify the best answer for this clue. Bismarck used diplomacy and war to unify Germany under Prussia. Option A, American system. Option B, German unification. Option C, Montesquieu. Option D, John Brown's raid. The correct answer is option B, German unification. This points to German unification because the new German Empire became a major European power. American system points instead to Clay promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Montesquieu points instead to a philosopher advocated separation of powers, and John Brown's raid points instead to an abolitionist attack on Harper's Ferry frightened many Southerners. Question 62. Wisely choose which response matches this clue. A reformer founded Hull House to assist immigrants and the urban poor. Option A, steam engine. Option B, salutary neglect. Option C, economic interpretation. Option D, Jane Addams. The correct answer is option D, Jane Addams. This points to Jane Addams because settlement houses addressed problems of industrial cities. Steam engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Salutary neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763, and economic interpretation points instead to historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Question 63. Rank in CLEP History Cold War, which answer fits this clue? Germany's post-World War I democracy faced inflation, extremism, and legitimacy problems. Option A, Japanese-American internment. Option B, Black Codes. Option C, Weimar Republic. Option D, Federal Reserve Act. The correct answer is option C, Weimar Republic. This points to Weimar Republic because its weakness helped create conditions for Nazi rise. Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II. Black Codes points instead to Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people, and Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Question 64. Prioritize the clue and select the correct history answer. Southern laws restricted the freedom of formerly enslaved people. Option A, World War I. Option B, Gilded Age. Option C, Christianity. Option D, Black Codes. The correct answer is option D, Black Codes. This points to Black Codes because the codes showed white Southern resistance to emancipation. World War I points instead to U.S. entry helped the Allies and increased federal power at home. Gilded Age points instead to rapid industrial growth and deep inequality and political corruption, and Christianity points instead to a religion grew within the Roman world and later became dominant in Europe. Question 65. Focus on the clue and pick the correct option. Eli Whitney's machine made cotton processing faster and expanded slavery's profitability. Option A, American system. Option B, end of the Cold War. Option C, Crimean War. Option D, cotton gin. The correct answer is option D, cotton gin. This points to cotton gin because the invention strengthened the cotton economy and deepened dependence on enslaved labor. American system points instead to CLEP promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. End of the Cold War points instead to Soviet collapse, ended the decades-long US-Soviet rivalry, and Crimean War points instead to a mid-19th century war exposed Russian weakness and shifted European diplomacy. Question 66. Use this clue to identify the tested topic. Historians explain how one development helped produce another. Option A, economic interpretation. Option B, compromise of 1850. Option C, causation. Option D, House of Burgesses. The correct answer is option C, causation. This points to causation because causation connects events rather than just listing dates. Economic interpretation points instead to historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Compromise of 1850 points instead to Congress admitted California as free and strengthened the Fugitive Slave Act, and House of Burgesses points instead to a Virginia Assembly gave colonists an early model of representative government. Question 67. Apply in CLEP History Cold War, which answer fits this clue? Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit. Option A, causation. Option B, Copernicus. Option C, Federal Reserve Act. Option D, Yalta Conference. The correct answer is option C, Federal Reserve Act. This points to Federal Reserve Act because the act reshaped U.S. banking and monetary policy. Causation points instead to historians explain how one development helped produce another. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system, and Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Question 68. Between the clues, which answer fits this topic? The New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Option A, Galileo. Option B, Social Security Act. Option C, Great Compromise. Option D, 14th Amendment. The correct answer is option B, Social Security Act. This points to Social Security Act because the law built a lasting federal social safety net. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Great Compromise points instead to the Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states, and 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Question 69. Promptly recognize which answer fits this clue. The Bolshevik leader promoted vanguard revolution and withdrew Russia from World War I. Option A, Lenin. Option B, 14th Amendment. Option C, Whiskey Rebellion. Option D, Napoleon Bonaparte. The correct answer is option A, Lenin. This points to Lenin because his leadership shaped early Soviet policy. 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution. Whiskey Rebellion points instead to Washington used federal power to enforce an excise tax, and Napoleon Bonaparte points instead to a military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Question 70. Smartly select the best historical match. The 1970s saw high inflation combined with slow growth. Option A, Yalta Conference. Option B, stagflation. Option C, Russian Revolution. Option D, Scopes trial. The correct answer is option B, stagflation. This points to stagflation because the problem challenged Keynesian policy assumptions. Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II. Russian Revolution points instead to revolution ended Tsarist rule and brought Bolsheviks to power, and Scopes trial points instead to a trial over teaching evolution highlighted conflict between modernism and fundamentalism. Question 71. Swiftly confirm the answer tied to this clue. Historical change is explained through production, trade, labor, and wealth. Option A, Northern Renaissance. Option B, New Deal. Option C, economic interpretation. Option D, scientific revolution. The correct answer is option C, economic interpretation. This points to economic interpretation because economic factors often shape political and social developments. Northern Renaissance points instead to reform-minded humanism spread in Northern Europe. New Deal points instead to Franklin Roosevelt's programs expanded federal relief, recovery, and reform, and Scientific Revolution points instead to thinkers used observation and mathematics to challenge older views of nature. Question 72. Diligently review and choose the matching answer. Belief in one God distinguished ancient Hebrew religion. Option A, Missouri Compromise. Option B, John Locke. Option C, Sputnik. Option D, Hebrew monotheism. The correct answer is option D, Hebrew monotheism. This points to Hebrew monotheism because monotheism became a major influence on later Western religious traditions. Missouri Compromise points instead to Congress balanced free and slave states while drawing a slavery line in the Louisiana Territory. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent, and Sputnik points instead to the Soviet satellite launch intensified Cold War competition in science and education. Question 73. Immediately in CLEP History Cold War, which answer fits this clue? Resistance to a police raid helped energize the LGBTQ rights movement. Option A, Stonewall Uprising. Option B, Galileo. Option C, Erie Canal. Option D, Marbury v. Madison. The correct answer is option A, Stonewall Uprising. This points to Stonewall Uprising because the event became a symbol of modern gay rights activism. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views. Erie Canal points instead to a canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. And Marbury v. Madison points instead to the Supreme Court established judicial review. Question 74. Narrow the choices to the answer matching this clue. Improved farming increased food production before industrialization. Option A, urbanization. Option B, agricultural revolution. Option C, American system. Option D, nullification crisis. The correct answer is option B, agricultural revolution. This points to agricultural revolution because higher productivity supported population growth and urban labor. Urbanization points instead to industrial jobs drew people into rapidly growing cities. American system points instead to Clay promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements, and nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Question 75. Eliminate distractors and choose the matching answer. A Renaissance writer helped revive classical Latin texts and humanism. Option A, Machiavelli. Option B, Treaty of Versailles. Option C, Petrarch. Option D, Salutary Neglect. The correct answer is option C, Petrarch. This points to Petrarch because he is often associated with early Renaissance humanism. Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Treaty of Versailles points instead to the peace settlement punished Germany and created the League of Nations. And Salutary Neglect points instead to Britain loosely enforced colonial rules before tightening control after 1763. Question 76. Again, which option fits after reading this CLEP-style clue? Clay promoted tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements. Option A, Yorktown. Option B, D-Day. Option C, American system. Option D, Peace of Westphalia. The correct answer is option C, American system. This points to American system because the plan aimed to strengthen national economic development. Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. D-Day points instead to Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. And Peace of Westphalia points instead to treaties helped establish state sovereignty after the 30 Years' War. Question 77. Think through this clue and identify the answer. Congress tried to curb monopolies and restraints of trade. Option A, Sherman Antitrust Act. Option B, Social Security Act. Option C, Great Compromise. Option D, Source bias. The correct answer is option A, Sherman Antitrust Act. This points to Sherman Antitrust Act because the law became an early federal tool against trusts. Social Security Act points instead to the New Deal created pensions and unemployment insurance. Great Compromise points instead to the Constitution created a bicameral Congress balancing large and small states, and source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Question 78. Quickly analyze which history answer fits Catholic leaders' clarified doctrine and Reformed Church practices. Option A, Marshall Plan. Option B, sharecropping. Option C, Council of Trent. Option D, Manifest Destiny. The correct answer is option C, Council of Trent. This points to Council of Trent because the council was central to the Catholic Reformation. Marshall Plan points instead to the United States-funded European recovery after World War II. Sharecropping points instead to freed people and poor whites farmed land for a share of the crop, and Manifest Destiny points instead to many Americans believed the nation was destined to expand westward. Question 79. Inspect a clue and select the correct option. A severe economic collapse caused mass unemployment and banking failures. Option A, Great Depression. Option B, Shays Rebellion. Option C, Socialism. Option D, Nationalism. The correct answer is option A, Great Depression. This points to Great Depression because the crisis transformed expectations of federal economic responsibility. Shays Rebellion points instead to farmers' unrest exposed weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. Socialism points instead to critics of capitalism called for social ownership or stronger protections for workers. And nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. Question 80. Study this clue and choose the matching history term. A Renaissance writer analyzed political power in the prince. Option A, NATO. Option B, 14th Amendment. Option C, Machiavelli. Option D, Estates-General. The correct answer is option C, Machiavelli. This points to Machiavelli because his work separated politics from traditional moral advice. NATO points instead to a military alliance linked the United States with Western Europe. 14th Amendment points instead to citizenship and equal protection were written into the Constitution, and Estates-General points instead to a French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis. Question 81. Master this CLEP clue by selecting the answer. Frontier unrest in Virginia exposed tensions over land, class, and colonial leadership. Option A, Newton. Option B, Galileo. Option C, Bacon's Rebellion. Option D, Nationalism. The correct answer is option C, Bacon's Rebellion. This points to Bacon's Rebellion because the rebellion revealed conflict inside colonial society. Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics. Galileo points instead to observations with a telescope supported heliocentrism and challenged church-backed views, and nationalism points instead to people emphasized shared language, culture, and political identity. Question 82. Drill this history clue and pick the best match. A military leader spread French reforms while building an empire. Option A, Napoleon Bonaparte. Option B, Nullification Crisis. Option C, Columbian Exchange. Option D, Scholasticism. The correct answer is option A, Napoleon Bonaparte. This points to Napoleon Bonaparte because his rule reshaped European politics and law. Nullification Crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Columbian Exchange points instead to new foods, animals, diseases, and peoples moved between the eastern and western hemispheres. And Scholasticism points instead to medieval thinkers used reason to examine theology. Question 83. Speedily review and select the answer tied to this clue. Lincoln declared enslaved people free in areas still rebelling against the Union. Option A, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Option B, Emancipation Proclamation. Option C, Yalta Conference. Option D, Prohibition. The correct answer is option B, Emancipation Proclamation. This points to Emancipation Proclamation because it shifted the Civil War toward a war against slavery. Harriet Beecher Stowe points instead to her novel Uncle Tom's Cabin increased Northern anti-slavery feeling. Yalta Conference points instead to Allied leaders discussed post-war Europe near the end of World War II, and Prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Question 84. Check which option fits this exam clue. South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Option A, Nullification Crisis. Option B, Copernicus. Option C, Iconoclasm. Option D, Common Sense. The correct answer is option A, Nullification Crisis. This points to Nullification Crisis because the crisis tested federal authority and states' rights. Copernicus points instead to a heliocentric model placed the sun at the center of the solar system. iconoclasm points instead to Byzantine disputes over religious images divided church and empire, and common sense points instead to Thomas Paine argued in plain language for independence from Britain. Question 85. Examine this clue and choose the correct answer. Thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition. Option A, Enlightenment. Option B, Greek polis. Option C, liberalism. Option D, Yorktown. The correct answer is option A, Enlightenment. This points to Enlightenment because the movement influenced politics and reform in Europe and America. Greek polis points instead to city-states such as Athens and Sparta shaped Greek political life. Liberalism points instead to political ideology emphasized rights, constitutionalism, and limited government, and Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Question 86. Closely compare the choices and identify the correct match. A federal agency assisted formerly enslaved people after the Civil War. Option A, Freedmen's Bureau. Option B, Yorktown. Option C, Boston Tea Party. Option D, Louisiana Purchase. The correct answer is option A, Freedmen's Bureau. This points to Freedmen's Bureau because it provided help with education, labor contracts, and basic needs. Yorktown points instead to Cornwallis surrendered after American and French forces trapped him. Boston Tea Party points instead to colonists protested the Tea Act by destroying tea in Boston Harbor, and Louisiana Purchase points instead to Jefferson doubled the nation's territory through a purchase from France. Question 87. Reason through this clue and choose the answer. Rome used elected offices, a senate, and checks among elites. Option A, GI Bill. Option B, Newton. Option C, Roman Republic. Option D, Black Death. The correct answer is option C, Roman Republic. This points to Roman Republic because the Republic influenced later ideas of mixed government. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Newton points instead to laws of motion and gravity unified celestial and earthly physics, and Black Death points instead to plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Question 88. Sort the choices and pick the one. This clue describes European integration created shared institutions and a common market. Option A, Agricultural Revolution. Option B, European Union. Option C, Congress of Vienna. Option D, English Civil War. The correct answer is option B, European Union. This points to European Union because the EU grew from post-war cooperation. Agricultural Revolution points instead to improved farming, increased food production before industrialization. Congress of Vienna points instead to European powers restored balance after Napoleon's defeat, and English Civil War points instead to conflict between king and parliament challenged royal absolutism. Question 89. Precisely identify which answer belongs with this clue. Schools developed around theology, law, medicine, and scholastic debate. Option A, medieval universities. Option B, D-Day. Option C, triangular trade. Option D, prohibition. The correct answer is option A, medieval universities. This points to medieval universities because universities became centers of learning in medieval Europe. D-Day points instead to Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. Triangular trade points instead to Atlantic trade linked Europe, Africa, and the Americas through goods and enslaved labor, and prohibition points instead to the 18th Amendment banned the manufacture and sale of alcohol. Question 90. Assuredly select the answer that matches this clue. Scholars emphasized classical learning and human achievement. Option A, John Locke. Option B, Marshall Plan. Option C, Renaissance humanism. Option D, Constitutional Convention. The correct answer is option C, Renaissance humanism. This points to Renaissance humanism because humanism shaped Renaissance art, education, and literature. John Locke points instead to a philosopher argued for natural rights and government by consent. Marshall Plan points instead to the United States funded European recovery after World War II, and Constitutional Convention points instead to delegates created a stronger federal government with checks and balances. Question 91. Mark the best response to this CLEP clue. A French representative body met in 1789 during a fiscal crisis. Option A, Mexican-American War. Option B, Estates General. Option C, Federal Reserve Act. Option D, Munich Conference. The correct answer is option B, Estates minus General. This points to Estates minus General because its meeting helped launch the French Revolution. Mexican minus American War points instead to U.S. victory added Western lands and reignited debate over slavery's expansion. Federal Reserve Act points instead to Congress created a central banking system to stabilize money and credit, and Munich Conference points instead to European leaders allowed Hitler to take the Sudetenland in 1938. Question 92. Pick the option that completes this history clue. Revivalism inspired reform movements, such as abolition and temperance. Option A, Second Great Awakening. Option B, Bill of Rights. Option C, Japanese-American internment. Option D, Holocaust. The correct answer is option A, Second Great Awakening. This points to Second Great Awakening because the movement connected religious energy with social reform. Bill of Rights points instead to the first 10 amendments protected individual liberties against federal abuse. Japanese-American internment points instead to the U.S. government forcibly relocated Japanese Americans during World War II, and Holocaust points instead to Nazi Germany murdered 6 million Jews and millions of other victims. Question 93. Look for the answer that fits this clue. Allied forces landed in Normandy to begin liberating Western Europe. Option A, Pearl Harbor. Option B, D-Day. Option C, Jacksonian democracy. Option D, Machiavelli. The correct answer is option B, D-Day. This points to D-Day because the invasion opened a major Western front against Nazi Germany. Pearl Harbor points instead to Japan's attack brought the United States into World War II. Jacksonian democracy points instead to politics expanded white male suffrage and celebrated the common man, and Machiavelli points instead to a Renaissance writer analyzed political power in The Prince. Question 94. Attentively study this clue and choose the correct match. Freed people and poor whites farmed land for a share of the crop. Option A, sharecropping. Option B, storming of the Bastille. Option C, Marshall Plan in Europe. Option D, fall of the Berlin Wall. The correct answer is option A, sharecropping. This points to sharecropping because the system often trapped farmers in debt after Reconstruction. Storming of the Bastille points instead to a Paris crowd attacked a royal prison in 1789. Marshall Plan in Europe points instead to U.S. aid rebuilt Western Europe and strengthened anti-communist governments. And fall of the Berlin Wall points instead to East Germans opened the barrier dividing Berlin in 1989. Question 95. Instantly think through and identify the CLEP history answer. Liberals and nationalists challenged conservative governments across Europe. Option A, revolutions of 1848. Option B, steam engine. Option C, Seneca Falls Convention. Option D, Federalist Papers. The correct answer is option A, revolutions of 1848. This points to revolutions of 1848 because most revolutions failed but revealed deep social and political tensions. Steam engine points instead to improved power technology drove factories, railroads, and mines. Seneca Falls Convention points instead to women's rights activists issued a declaration demanding equality, and Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power. Question 96. Recheck the clue and select the correct answer. Parliament taxed imports such as glass, paper and tea. Option A, GI Bill. Option B, Truman Doctrine. Option C, Townsend Acts. Option D, Hamilton's Financial Plan. The correct answer is option C, Townsend Acts. This points to Townsend Acts because the acts renewed colonial protests against imperial taxation. GI Bill points instead to veterans received education and housing benefits after World War II. Truman Doctrine points instead to the United States promised aid to resist communist expansion, and Hamilton's Financial Plan points instead to the federal government assumed debts and supported a national bank. Question 97. Try this quick CLEP history clue. Plague killed millions and disrupted Europe's economy and society. Option A, Darwinism. Option B, European coal and steel community. Option C, Black Death. Option D, nullification crisis. The correct answer is option C, Black Death. This points to Black Death because the pandemic weakened labor systems and changed social relations. Darwinism points instead to evolution by natural selection challenged older views of life and nature. European coal and steel community points instead to Western European states' pooled coal and steel production after World War II, and nullification crisis points instead to South Carolina claimed it could reject federal tariffs. Question 98. Answer this history clue with the best option. The United States funded European recovery after World War II. Option A, Peace of Augsburg. Option B, Marshall Plan. Option C, Federalist Papers. Option D, source bias. The correct answer is option B, Marshall Plan. This points to Marshall Plan because the plan aimed to rebuild economies and resist communism. Peace of Augsburg points instead to German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Federalist Papers points instead to essays defended ratification of the Constitution and explained federal power, and source bias points instead to evidence may be shaped by an author's motives or assumptions. Question 99. Resolve which answer this clue is testing. German rulers could choose Lutheranism or Catholicism for their territories. Option A, Populist Movement. Option B, Dreyfus Affair. Option C, Peace of Augsburg. Option D, Fall of Western Rome. The correct answer is option C, Peace of Augsburg. This points to Peace of Augsburg because the settlement temporarily managed religious division in the Holy Roman Empire. Populist movement points instead to farmers' demanded reforms such as free silver, railroad regulation, and direct democracy. Dreyfus Affair points instead to a French scandal over antisemitism and military injustice divided society, and Fall of Western Rome points instead to political weakness, invasions, and economic strain ended imperial rule in the West. Question 100. Unlock the correct response to this clue. A historical argument states a defensible claim about evidence. Option A, thesis statement. Option B, German unification. Option C, Erie Canal. Option D, Enlightenment. The correct answer is option A, thesis statement. This points to thesis statement because a thesis guides interpretation rather than merely listing facts. German unification points instead to Bismarck used diplomacy and war to unify Germany under Prussia. Erie Canal points instead to a canal connected the Great Lakes to the Hudson River and lowered transportation costs. And Enlightenment points instead to thinkers emphasized reason, natural rights, and criticism of tradition.